Hey everybody, Billy here. Welcome back to another episode with us. Thanks for joining us, and this is just going to be a quick recap podcast that Jimbo did with the guys up at Deer Camp, the opening weekend of Muzzleloader up in the Adirondacks or in the northern zone. So this will be up at Uncle Tim's place, and Jimbo took the podcast gear so we could get a recap. And if you've been following with us, you saw that they had a pretty successful weekend up there. They got 3 deer on the ground, so you'll hear all 3 of those stories, and the guys kind of talk about their adventures of the weekend up there in the North Country. So hope you enjoy this discussion. Good luck. Get out there and fill the freezer so you can feed them.
Hello.
Yeah, that's your name.
Squirrels got me.
Big Jim.
Yeah.
Really cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
That's good that you think of it because that's what deer hunting typically is cold and fun.
Yesterday morning, I'm glassing up on the pass, and I see these deer moving, and I'm like, ooh, there's deer moving. All of a sudden, I just see this person just head down, just hauling ass, wearing shorts and a t-shirt with a pack on. And I'm like, is that Tard? My dad always talks about floating through the woods like the autumn breeze.
So Robert's
when you're
the
275 pounds, I don't know how you do that, but
the Freightliner. It's just like a creeper. You're just kind of up in the corner watching what's going on down there.
yeah,
You know,
he's like,
he's up there slapping it, pissing all over everything.
is it warm yet?
How did you know the name of the actor?
That's right. I know.
Why'd you say his name?
Hervé Villechaize. Remember the English.
You know what Pertnear means.
If you know what Pertnear means and you live in America, you're a redneck too.
Welcome to the Log Talk Podcast, brought to you by Pertnear Outdoors.
That's a safe word.
Focal
banger.
Focal banger.
We've had too much. Somebody say that.
All right. So we are here finishing up our muzzleloader weekend.
Cheers to that.
Yep.
We tried to, we wanted to do this last night, but we didn't quite have everything come together with that. So this is Big Jim, your host. First time I've ever ran this thing, so hopefully it comes out. But I'll let everybody introduce themselves. We'll start to my left.
Hey everybody, this is Dave Harvey. Happy to be on Pertnear Radio here. This is pretty sweet. Up here from Boston. Came up for the weekend.
City folk.
Yuppie.
Yeah, city folk. Lewis Naughtonson over here too, coming in from the flatlands of Massachusetts.
And Tim Harvey here, coming in from the local area, Lima. Here hosting everybody up at the camp, do the muzzleloader hunt for the weekend. So
we appreciate you opening the camp to us. It's been a great time.
Yep, very productive weekend, as you guys you'll find out shortly as everybody tells their stories. So I'll turn it over to Chris.
Okay, Chris here, the Chris Harvey everybody's heard about. That's
Chris
my son
Harvey.
David, who's here as well. So nice family hunt with him to come in town. Just happy to be here and glad Tim was nice enough to invite us up for this muzzleloader hunt weekend.
Yeah, absolutely, it's fun. Even if we don't get anything, we have a lot of fun.
But
It's more fun.
But
this year we got something.
yes,
So we got here Friday night. Maybe had the original or the traditional get into camp and be all excited and stay up way too late.
yep,
That
happened.
So we did that, and then we all actually made it out in the woods at a reasonable hour, still on Saturday morning. So I'll let Dave start out with how his morning went.
Yeah. Saturday morning was awesome. Somehow we woke up in time, not too hungover. Usually it's pretty miserable here at Tim's camp the next morning.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant staying here was
hangover.
miserable.
Oh,
I'm like,
man.
I can hear you.
Yeah, focal banger, But yeah, we got in the woods at a nice time and watched the sun come up. And it was crazy. I was not convinced that there was many deer here at Tim's camp, and it was proved wrong Saturday morning. We were sitting in the tree stands right behind Tim's camp, and so Uncle Tim was about 100 yards to my left, and my buddy Lewis was probably another 100 yards to my right. We made this little Bermuda Triangle of Death. That's what it's called now.
That's the new nickname.
Notoriously. So yeah, we had a few deer running around, like right around like 7:15 or 7:30. We had 2 deer just like busting tail through the Bermuda Triangle, and none of us could get a shot. And Lewis saw some deer, and eventually, like later, I think around 8 o'clock, 3 deer. It was a doe and 2 yippers. They snuck in on Lewis, and he didn't hear them. So he shot me a text, and I knew they were coming my way. And the 3 of them were coming right at me. And I saw them from like 100 yards out, so I got ready, pulled up my gun, and they came right up, probably 50 yards away. And I think they scented Tim or something.
Yeah, the wind was from me to them. Yeah, out in front of you. Yeah.
At this point, too, they were right in the middle of the Bermuda Triangle.
Right in the middle of the Bermuda Triangle.
Can I hold up?
Getting out of the triangle.
I just want to point out one thing, though. They went from Lewis, who's a very nice individual, to Dave, right behind me. And nobody gave me the heads up. They were right behind me. So I'm sensing a little favoritism. But that's okay. That's okay, though.
They were following the signage. It was deers to Dave.
Yeah.
That's it. They were coming right at me.
They were right on the string.
It was really meant to be. Really meant to be. But yeah, so, the mama doe, she was out front, and she was scenting Tim, I think. And she turned her head, and I had a shot right at her breast right off the bat. But I wanted to hold off for a better shot. So she quartered after probably 30 or 40 seconds. And, I felt comfortable with the shot and pulled the trigger, and a cloud of smoke from the muzzleloader, and it didn't get the response that I thought from the doe. She didn't act like how I usually see deer act when they get hit, She was not doing the normal death run, She took off, and Tim saw her take off. Lewis saw her take off. And she wasn't running with the same type of urgency that I usually see a deer take off with their tail up, and they're just hauling, And she was even checking back for her little ones. So we were thinking like, oh, maybe I jerked the trigger. I haven't shot a deer in a while. Maybe I jerked. Maybe I shot high and missed. And then I got down and checked for blood and fur and didn't see anything. So I assumed it was a clean miss. And, so we come back.
I think you should note at this point that Lewis and Tim both saw the deer and agreed with you that the deer looked like it was not hit.
Totally.
Because I was actually on public land a couple miles from here hunting by myself, and I was seeing the group text. And, I was kind of sad. It sounded like, but I couldn't believe that you would miss the deer because you said it felt good, and you're using.
It was a good shot.
You're using Joe's muzzleloader, which is I just had confirmed was sighted in. So.
Oh, it was dead on.
I was like, maybe you hit a branch or something, because I'm like, that close, you should at least hit it somewhere, even if you jerk the gun.
He shot, and I can't see him or Lewis where they're at, but I see the deer running behind me, 50 yards or so, and I just saw him running, and I'm like, well, they looked fine, and the doe wasn't limping, wasn't carrying a leg, wasn't doing that urgent death type run, was just kind of running off. Lewis and I both saw the same type of thing, and looking back, it's it was a lesson learned that it was hit. It just didn't start bleeding for quite a while.
Yeah.
So I can let you take back over. Dave.
So actually, when it ran by Lewis was the last one.
Yeah.
And the side that Lewis was looking at actually did not even have an exit wound or anything.
Right.
So
that's true.
So he had just a clean side of a deer he was looking at running through the woods, and he was like, no, it looked fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at the time, I thought it was a clean miss, and so we went about our morning. Just like normal. So we came back to the camp, and
you got down right away and looked for blood.
Yeah, I checked.
Dave
blood.
And then I said I'll come look with you or for you when we get over there. Lewis and I went over, and you directed me like we do right to the spot it was standing, and I looked around, and I couldn't find any hair, any piece of flesh, any blood, nothing at all. And we circled around. I couldn't even find where the deer had turned and bolted when they run. The kick leaves. I couldn't find anything, and. We walked around a little bit and looked. I'm like, I don't know. I just figured, I honestly thought you missed it, and you said, well, I might have jerked it, when I pulled the trigger. So, but then fast forward.
Yeah. Fast forward. We come back to the camp, we're done with our morning hunt, and we go back out. Lewis and I go out for a walk, and we run into these 2 hunters who had been cutting through property adjacent to us. And Lewis calls me, and he's like, "Dave, these guys found your doe." I'm like, "What? No way." So we go over and we talk to them. They're like, "Did you guys not see the blood trail?" I'm like, "No, what are you talking about?" And he points down, and it looked like somebody just threw buckets on the ground. It was incredible.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
And so it had turned out that just the shot placement and everything, the deer didn't start to really bleed out for quite a ways into its run. And I think that's a big lesson learned, because after we followed that trail, dead as a doornail at the end of that trail.
Yeah. So I kind of like when you guys were dragging it out, I started following the blood trail back, and I think probably like at Lewis's stand or just 15, 20 yards before it petered right out to nothing. Right. So there was like just little tiny specks. And then once it got past Lewis, it almost looked like it bounced off a tree or something.
Yeah.
Because there was like this tree just coated in blood. And then after that, it was just a solid line of just fantastic blood trail. And it only went like 60 yards from there. But
I've never seen a hit like this. David hit it. It was quartered, so it was a quartering shot, and he hit it back just a little bit. So the round entered, and it actually went into, I think it caught the artery back there, and the round did not exit because it hit the hind quarter. So I think the blood gathered there was not coming out right away. There was no exit wound, so Lewis didn't see an exit wound. And then, next thing you know, when it hit the tree or something happened, when it released, it was unbelievable amount of blood. So
crazy.
It was definitely a lesson learned. And these guys who were there, the guys I met at the front gate, I had a nice conversation. It was like 11:30 in the morning, and they were going to hunt back behind us right on the edge of the state land. And the guy grew up hunting here, real nice guy. And he, he said he was going to go back there, check out the area. So when I came back, I told David and Lewis, I said, it was around lunchtime. I said, why don't you go out and hop in those ladder stands? These guys are going to be back there. They might kick a deer out. So it was real nice of them to come back and let us know, and it was good that you guys were there. But we
probably
were
thought we were a bunch of idiots.
Definitely.
It was kind of embarrassing. They probably thought we were city slickers.
Oh, yeah, totally.
But I mean, that's just one of those things. I mean, how long have we all been hunting? And it's just, you could look at that deer and say, "Yeah, wasn't hit," and you guys did look, but 60 yards and you didn't have any blood, and you're like, "Yeah, I guess."
From the way
it looked fine, we're not finding blood.
And the three of us saw her run off a certain way. It's just a lesson learned.
And the hit was right behind the ribs and into the opposite hind quarter.
Yeah,
it was very unusual.
And it must have nabbed that artery back there, because when it opened up, it opened up.
Good God, yeah.
Yeah, and that's my lesson learned. Always go after and track the deer, put in an honest effort. And
I think we do.
Yeah,
but I too easily wrote it off. That talking with you and talking with Lewis and what we saw.
We're usually good about this, and so.
I know.
But the other thing is, usually you don't have two other guys close enough to see the deer running away.
Yes.
Normally you're by yourself. You don't know what it did after it ran away.
Exactly.
But I think the sense of security of like, oh, I saw it, it looked fine. Oh, I saw it, it looked fine.
Exactly.
And then you didn't find blood in the first 60 yards, and you're like, you know what? Must have jerked the shot or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was a pretty good lesson.
Yeah, definitely.
So at that point, I think we can all agree the mood of the camp changed drastically. From a depressed mood of we didn't get a deer, because it's a big deal to get a deer up here. Only once in the past have we harvested a whitetail on this muzzleloader weekend. So everybody was pretty happy. We were all excited. We got the deer out.
Yeah.
Had an awesome lunch, and then moved on from there. I think we took a quick nap to recuperate from the night before, and then we moved on to the evening hunt. And for the evening hunt, I decided to hunt behind the camp with Tim and Lewis and David. I had got my climber, so I went back out there, and then Jimmy, you were going to go over behind your in-laws' house, right?
Yeah, so I hunted some state land that butts up to it in the morning, and I didn't see anything. And I was kind of you get discouraged up here because it's just like every time you go sit in a tree stand, you see nothing, and you think you got them figured out, and then they do something different. So I had a spot that I had been looking at for years that I wanted to try, and I put a climber there the day after the bear hunt. I think I put a climber up there, and I went up there, and I parked on top of the hill with Chris's side by side, and walked down in and got up on my climber. I was probably there, I don't know, 35 minutes. And I could hear something walking behind me. We didn't go out super early yesterday afternoon. I mean, it was probably 5:15 when I got fully set up.
By the time you got there.
Yeah. So I heard something, and I realized there was something walking uphill behind me, which I wasn't even really watching that area because I didn't think they would come from there. And it ended up being a nice doe, and she was feeding across the crest of the hill, and then I saw a second one behind it. I got the scope on that one and saw it was just a younger one. So the way it was set up uphill from me, I had to like crouch down inside the climber and like get kneeled almost to be able to use the shooting rest to get a good hold on it. And they were probably like 100 yards plus, and they were just working the crest of the hill. And every time I had like an opening and put the crosshairs on her, all I could see in the background was skyline. And I'm like, I just don't want to do that. And she's still somewhat working down to my left, like I should still be able to pull off a shot. And she got to the point where she was down off the skyline, and she gave me it was a decent open shot. You know, I'd been twisted up in that climber for, you know, over 5 minutes, if not 10. And she stepped into the opening and stopped, and I had the crosshairs right behind the shoulder, and I shot, and she came tearing back across the hill, and I didn't know if I had hit her or not. The one thing I noticed is that she had tail tucked, and she was just screaming. And there's goldenrod and apples and shit out in front of me. It's just a nasty mess. And I didn't hear crashing and banging going into there, which I thought she was at that point where she was just going to start the somersault and just crash down and done. Yeah. And when I didn't hear that, I was like, that's not good. Maybe I missed her, didn't hit her well. So I gave it like 15, 20 minutes. And then I got down out of the stand. I walked up on the side hill where she ran across. I could see where the leaves were kicked up. And right away I saw blood, you know, shooting off when she was running through, and how fast she was going to have blood already. I was kind of excited. So I tracked that up to the goldenrod, and right when I got to the goldenrod, I heard something crash out the other side through the tall shit. And I was like, I don't know if that's the one that it was with or if it was it. And then when I got to the goldenrod, there was just pools of blood, and I'm like, oh, this is good. She's got to be right here. But she had kind of sent me for a loop because I thought she went right in, but she didn't. She walked up the edge and then in. And then trying to go through that goldenrod, finding blood, and it was dark at that point. And then you guys were like, oh, you need a hand? And I'm like, well, I kind of have your fucking side-by-side, and I'm like a mile and a half away, so probably not.
Well, we'll have to add in, we had some people down here on the road at the front gate to this private access. Yeah. I don't know who they were, what they were doing, but they were loud. They pulled in and they were yelling and laughing and talking, and that was at prime time at like 5:45. Yeah. And we're like, well, you know, and then some guy tried to shoot his muzzleloader and his primer went off, and then he tried again. He had like a slow burn. Yeah. At like 6.
I think he was out. I think he might have been hunting, and he shot. You heard the pop, and it almost sounded like a pistol or a handgun. And we're like, what the hell was that? We were joking that Sasquatch has got a handgun now.
Well,
we're in trouble.
Yeah, you said you heard the tree knock right before that.
Yeah, we did. Actually did hear a tree knock. That's another story.
But it was real squatchy.
Yeah. Right. So then we hear that, and we're like, wow, that's crazy. And then, I don't know, minutes later, you hear, pop, boom, and Chris goes slow burn, And so, and then you hear, he's like walking, you hear him F-bomb and fucking, loud. I mean, they're so quiet. You could hear the guy walking back out to the camp down the way from us, I think. And I'm thinking, I think he got a shot at something, and it didn't work, and so he shot it again. And then he went back, and I think he reloaded and tried it one more time. And I'm like, Jesus, will you please stop?
Right.
Yeah. But, so we were like, all right, we can go help you out if you want.
Yeah.
So.
No, I was kind of at that point where I was starting to get the gut feeling she wasn't dead. Yeah. And that it was her that I kicked up. And my father-in-law was right about dark. He got there to me. So he kind of went around that side and tried to look and try to find sign. And I tried to stay on blood, but in that goldenrod, it was like I'd find one little speck of blood on a tassel of the goldenrod, and then it was like, it was one of those deals where I'm like, I know I heard a noise over by that pine tree, and there's like 40 yards of this goldenrod to get there, and it's dark now, so I'm like, I kind of wanted to just get there and see if there was a bed or what. So I made it through there, and by that pine tree there was some open ground with some leaves on it, and sure as shit I found blood right there. And then I tracked that up a little bit through that, and there was a bed right there, and I had blood out both sides. It was darker blood. So at that point, I'm like, obviously I didn't hit, double lung or heart shot it, or it would have been dead by now.
Yeah.
So kind of had to figure out where she exited that. And it ended up being right on the main trail, crossing into state land. And at that point, I was on the phone with you. And we were like, we should probably just back off it, because if we keep bumping it and it's not bleeding much, because I was going on specs at that point.
Yeah.
And it was definitely dark specs. And then I told you I thought it turned brown on me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, this is just weird. I don't know what's going on. I know I hit it. It's not a leg or something, like it's a decent hit.
Yeah.
So we decided to back out. But then that just made, that was 8:30. And I didn't get back up here till after 9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So last night ended up just being late, and we didn't feel like setting all this shit up. And
Yeah.
we just had a nice night in camp. We cooked dinner and shot the shit. And
Yeah.
Yeah, had a good dinner and
Fresh tenderloins.
Oh,
fresh
Thanks to
tenderloins.
Yeah.
Courtesy of David and
We had
some bear.
We had
some bear.
fresh tenderloins, bear burgers, and venison burgers.
Yep. And tater tots.
Tater tots.
what a treat.
very well made tater tots, I might add.
Yeah.
And Focal Banger.
Yeah.
And some Focal Bainer IPA.
So
Low whiskey too.
There you go.
this morning, Tim agreed to meet me out there and help me pick up the track job at First Light. And Chris and the boys went back here to the Bermuda Triangle
Of death.
of death
Triangle of Death.
now, because there's a second one out of it, so I think you can call it of death now.
Yeah.
So, so Tim and I went and picked up. It was hard at first to try to find anything.
Yeah.
And then we finally got on a couple of specs, and then you could kind of see through the leaves where it had ran through the woods.
That helped.
That
a
helped
lot.
huge, because Tim would stay there and keep, glassing for a speck close, and then I'd jump ahead of him 3-4 yards where I could see the next leaves kicked up. And doing that, we kind of leapfrogged back and forth a little bit, and we got, I don't know, it was maybe 100, 150 yards up there, and then we found another bed. And from that bed, it was like there was a bunch of shit kicked up, and we didn't really know which direction it went, and the blood that was in the bed was super dry.
Right.
So we were about to try to figure out which way she went, and I kind of stepped up over the top where the leaves were all kicked up, and I could see over the log in front of us, and she was laying right on the other side of the log.
Oh,
So,
nice.
Yeah, that was cool.
so luckily nothing got into her. It looked like something started to. I don't
Yeah.
know if the coyotes found her this morning, and we came driving in on the side by side, and
Yeah.
they took off or what, but they were definitely starting to
Pull some hair off.
pull
it.
some hair, and they got into the back end, just started to, but
They wanted that tail.
yeah, the tail's gone. There's no
I know
more
it's-
tail. So
Yeah, I can't believe the
They
tail's
got
gone.
the tail.
they just helped me out, gutting it.
Yeah.
They made ring the anus easier for me. So we were sitting there, celebrating that a little bit, and our phones had been blowing up, and we just hadn't been looking at them.
I'm like, yeah, I'm not even gonna start.
And then I pull my phone out of my pocket and I see buck down. I'm like, son of a bitch, I
I'm
shot
like-
another one.
It's funny because we never heard the shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
whatever-
thought you would have heard it.
the way you're facing or whatever. We didn't hear it.
Yeah.
Then I thought you were joking at first. And then as reading, I'm like, hell no, they're not joking.
Yeah, we don't joke about those type of things.
No.
No, that's not something to joke about.
Especially when you said goodbye, Forky.
Yeah. Yeah, when you
R.I.P.
said bye
Forky.
Forky, I was like, oh,
Yeah,
that's funny.
He got him.
Yeah.
So yeah, with that track job there, it was one of those deals where I probably could have given her more time, but it was getting dark,
Yeah.
and I wanted to figure out what had happened and if I had blood. And from where I found blood to where I kicked her up, I had only gone 50 yards, and I was going slow. And it was one of those deals where it was like, well, now I kicked her up. I kind of want to see what kind of sign I got at that
Right.
bed. And then I think from there, our only concern was, I don't think our concern was is she dead or not in the morning. I think it was, is she going to be eaten up by
Yeah.
the critters or not by the morning. So
yeah.
we rolled the dice on that one and got lucky. I did it last year with one and freaking lost the ass end on it. But
Yeah.
luckily it worked out for us this time. But it was kind of one of those calls that you just had to roll the dice on.
It was the right move. And it was
Yeah.
tough tracking that darker blood, the way it was stained dark or something. It was tough to see it. There was a lot of leaves you'd see. It would be a hole in the leaf, and I thought it was blood. And it wasn't. So it was tough going. The sign was there. The leaves helped.
Yeah.
But it was just take your time.
And it's one of those deals where the ridge she was laying on, where she was laying, she was probably watching us shining our lights around down there by the road.
Yeah.
Because I had shined my light, up across that ridge and into the woods there, just trying to see if she was laying there or if I see eyes or something. Or
The way she ran up off that that trail there. She was, it took her how many seconds to get up to where she, so.
Yeah, and if you, it was the right call, because if you had gone back there in the dark, like you said, number one, it's really hard to track a deer in the dark if there's very little blood, and then you might have kept pushing it. So
I think if I'd have pushed it again, we'd have had a problem because there was not much to go by.
Yeah.
And if you'd have kept her pumping and moving, that shit got nasty in there again, right past where she died. Yeah. So I think if we'd have got into that stuff trying to track specs, we'd have had a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So happy we did what we did, and it worked out for us. So.
Yeah.
My first Adirondack deer, finally.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
So, you've been trying for many years.
Yeah. I don't know how hard we've been trying, but we've been trying. Yeah. Every year I think I got it figured out, and then I don't. So.
I haven't passed on any shots on deer. Let me put that
no,
way.
I haven't either up here.
Well,
I passed a little Forky a couple of years ago, but that was the only one I've ever actually passed on. So normally I some years I see some deer and I just can't get good shots, and then other years I just don't see any. So
I mean, that's the hunting behind the camp here. Just that's the way their movements and their patterns are this year. With Dave and Lewis and myself, I mean, Lewis had deer around him pretty much every hunt. Yeah. In that little spot you're in, that ladder stand, and so I mean, there were shot opportunities. I had those 2 deer run out of the brush that you guys were talking about earlier, hauling ass, and there was a good doe there, and if it had been slower, I might have shot at it, but I didn't want to waste around at them running. They're 20 yards away, but it's a tough shot in the woods. Mm-hmm. So then it wasn't that important for me to pull the trigger.
Right.
So it was great, and we saw 5. Lewis saw an additional one in the one day, so that's pretty good.
That's really good for up here. And the other thing is we don't hunt this, like we hunt home.
Yeah.
Right. I'm sure if this was where we hunted,
yeah, if you're up
if this was our location, we would find them. But to come up and really you're hunting a day and a half.
Yeah, that's it.
Because we go home Sunday afternoon. We don't hunt Sunday afternoon.
Right.
So really you get
3 hunts in.
You get 3 hunts in, and that's that. So it's hard to pin them down up here that quick.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to hear the story on Forky now.
Yep.
Old Forky.
Story of old Forky. So yeah, like you said, you guys were going out tracking. Tim left here shortly after us. We got out. It was still dark. Lewis, David, and I went out back to those 3 ladder stands, the triangle. So I went to the furthest ladder stand. It's straight out to the back of Tim's property line, borders that public land. And he's got a real nice ladder stand. And then David was back behind me in between, the camp and my location. And then, south of me was Lewis. So we had a pretty good setup, but the stand was nice, and I'm basically facing into kind of thicker stuff, and then it drops down to a stream. But I can easily look left or right, and it's kind of open woods, and the thicker stuff is probably 80 yards behind me where, along the line Lewis and David are on. But it was a gorgeous morning. I got in the tree stand, and I honestly was just enjoying the moment. It was so nice to be in the woods. The colors up here are beautiful. I mean, it was probably 30 degrees, and you watch the sky starting to brighten. I'm facing east, so I'm watching it light up. And so I'm just like being thankful for the whole experience. I was happy that, David got his first northern deer, plus it was his first muzzleloader deer. And then, I figured you were probably going to get yours. So it was a good moment. But so basically I lightened up, and I'm just on watch looking around, and it had to be about 7:15 or maybe 7:30. Lewis texted us and said that he had seen a deer, which would have been south of me off to my right, which I did not see, but, it got us kind of excited. We're like, all right, the deer are back in here. So didn't know if yesterday was a fluke.
Oh, that Lewis texted you and saw his, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool, and then it continued to get light out, and I'd have to look at my phone, but I think David must have texted me around 8 o'clock probably.
It was like 7:30 or 8.
Yeah.
Right in there somewhere.
Yeah, it was, 5-10 minutes after Lewis said he saw a deer.
Yeah.
So my phone was going off in my pocket, and it was kind of cold out, so I wasn't, got to take my glove off. I wasn't looking at it all the time, but I noticed it kept going off, so I reach in and I open up my phone, and all I see is David says, "Dad, look to your left, a doe coming."
I saw that text.
And I'm like, oh crap. So, the gun was on the shooting rail in front of me, so I picked the gun up real slow, and I look over to my left, and I expect it to be like right behind me. And then I pan over to my, to the right a little bit, and I see a deer walking through kind of the open woods like it came behind Dave. And I immediately saw antlers, and I'm like, oh, cool, that's a buck. I'm like, it's a small buck. And it's just walking nonchalant, kind of to my left and to the east, so it was going to come by parallel, probably 40 yards away. And it came by broadside. The first time I could have shot, I wasn't going to shoot it. And I said, I know anybody who listens to this podcast, if you use this tag for a buck right now, then I'm giving up my bow tag. And I'm a passionate bow hunter. Like everybody else, I try to get the big buck every year, and we have a few more weeks of archery in the southern zone left. So I didn't even cock the hammer back. I said, I'm going to let it walk. But then it kept walking, and I took about 2 to 3 seconds. I ran the decision process. I said, what? Maybe it's rare to get a deer up here. I've never got a deer up north. And David's here. We're having a great weekend. And you know what? I may not even get a buck with my bow. I go through this year after year. You stress out. You get obsessed with it, and you pass all these deer. So I cocked the hammer back, basically. Yeah. And I said,
it's all over.
It's all downhill from there.
Yeah. So I love my muzzleloader. It's very accurate. I have very good success with it. And the deer was really 30 or 35 yards. So now it's into some fallen trees. So I've got the gun rested on the shooting rail. And I'm just following it in my scope. And he finally came to a spot where there was an opening. And he was broadside, slightly quartered. And I touched a round off. And he kind of turned around and started running back towards me. And he ran kind of parallel back to my left again, like he was going to head towards David. And right when he got even with my stand, he turned and ran right at me. And I didn't see the exit wound at first, so I was a little worried, and I was like shocked. I was like, geez, I don't see an exit wound. It's impossible. There's no way I'm missing this deer. And then I saw I saw something towards the back because he was quartering away. I saw a little bit of blood. And I'm like, okay, I hit him. And right then he turned and started wobbling and trying to run towards me, and he just dropped on the ground and died. Probably, it had to be 15 yards from my tree stand.
Nice.
Yeah.
As soon as he went down, as soon as he fell down, I didn't even look at him anymore. I grabbed out my ammo and I reloaded because I'm like, I've seen it in the past. A deer can get up and run off. So I stopped looking at him. I reloaded quickly. And then I think I heard him made his dying breath there. He made a noise. I looked over, and I'm like, okay, he's definitely dead. So I relaxed, and I text these guys, and they're like, hey, congrats. I think Lewis saw it.
Yeah, I think one of you guys texted, you're like, holy shit. Because, you watched the whole thing happen.
What did you see, Lewis?
Yeah, this triangle of death, we couldn't see each other, but the entire time, if a deer, anything, happened to pounce through the middle, we all had eyes on it.
I know.
So I saw this little buck running, stop, right in plain sight. I think Dave also had eyes on it.
Oh, yeah.
Chris, of course, did, and just sat right down right there.
Yeah, it is odd you mentioned. I kept looking. I'm like, why can't I see Lewis? I know where he is. And I'd turn over my left shoulder. I'm like, I can't see. And I know they're wearing orange hats. And I'm like,
I know, you can't see
This
him.
is a really odd setup. I can't see. They're just far enough away I can't see them, but we're seeing the same thing.
Well, it was funny because we took the side-by-side back in there yesterday to pick up David's deer. And I'm like, yeah, where'd he shoot it from? And Tim was like, oh, this ladder stand right here. I'm like, oh, nice. Then we're driving up around the trail. And then I'm like, well, there's another ladder stand right there. Yeah, that's the one I was sitting in. I'm like, oh, cool. Then we turn the corner and start back down. And then he's like, yeah, that's where Lewis was sitting. I'm like, Jesus Christ, you guys are 60 yards apart.
Yeah, just to reiterate the triangle, Bermuda Triangle of Death here. We got these 3 tree stands. Like Jimmy said, they're all packed in tight close. But it's great because we're all in the same open woods together. And, we have the entire area covered. If a deer is going to move anywhere near us, we're going to see it and just alert the other person. And it paid off twice this weekend.
Yeah.
Well, so it's interesting, too, because Lewis was seeing a couple of deer that you guys weren't even seeing.
Yeah, I didn't see his deer.
And the deer that are out in front of me, where you made the shot, you guys can't see that spot. And that's where that bear had been coming in. But down the corners where you guys are, there's, from my stand up there, you can't make a shot down there. So it
really kind of covers it pretty good.
And it's really just, I didn't plan it that way, but Dave and Lewis need a place to sit. I'm like, well, we got this one. And I think they're not bad spots, but I don't know how this is going to work out. And we tried it, and it worked out fantastic.
It just feels weird because it's we're going to take 3 of us and just sit right there behind the cabin. It's okay.
Yeah, and I think
we worked out both mornings.
I know.
So hey,
I know.
Yeah, and the habitat's there. You couldn't go to any part of these woods and pull that off, but because it's really unique here, you have a combination of open woods. You have some brush there, a bunch of old apple trees, and then there's a big thicket to the south of us. Barely 100 yards, and the combination is there, and you have a lot of deer here. And so it was funny because Lewis is a fairly new hunter, and he asked I think it was earlier. He goes, geez, I didn't think that you would put tree strands this close together. And I said, well, don't get me wrong. We don't back home. We don't hunt like this. Yeah. I go, this is unique. We normally would be farther apart. But the funny thing here is if somebody texts you and says, hey, there's a deer heading your way, you're definitely going to see it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It was effective.
But,
we're for hire for your security service.
Yeah.
So I wanted to touch on that a little bit, Lewis. Is this your first deer camp?
Yeah, my first time at Harvey deer camp, and really the first deer camp. Yeah.
Yeah. So what did you think of it?
It was a pretty good time. I probably should have had a notebook out the whole time when it came down to it, but it was sweet.
No, we tried to give you a little advice, but I mean it's cool that we got deer and you were able to see it and be a part of a couple of different kills because you were here on the two of them. I mean, you didn't get to see what I went through, but you got to see what two other guys went through here,
which is pretty good. And
yeah, it was sweet.
So you got to see the gut jobs and pulling the tenderloins out.
And, cooking them up.
That's a big deal.
They had a lot of game.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
And the triangle was nice in the end because we were all seeing the same things, talk about it afterward.
Yeah.
Sort of recap what we were seeing and why we reacted the way we did.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was an awesome weekend. Picked up a lot for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we're sitting on, 5 acres here?
Yeah, I only own 5 acres here.
I mean, you came up for a weekend with four guys that were hunting here. I was hunting down the hill. But
yeah.
I mean, you got, in 5 acres, you had 3 guys, every hunt.
Yeah.
And then it still worked out, so.
Yeah, it's just it just works right here, right now. The way the patterns are. A lot of pictures of deer all the time around here. And like I said, I didn't plan to have all 3 of us up there, but I wanted to have them I didn't want to send them off in the big woods like, well, there's a ravine by this creek, a half a mile across the road, send them that way. I wanted you to come up and just relax and be able to sit and it worked. I could drop you guys off and go to my spot, and I'm close in case one of you shot. And so it worked out really well.
Yeah, it was perfect to be able to come up here just for the weekend.
Yeah.
And I don't get to hunt much anymore because I moved from Vermont to Boston. I'm from Rochester, so I've been bouncing all over the place the past few years.
Mm-hmm.
And I was skiing in college, so I never had time to hunt. But now, I've got my free weekends in Boston, and I have the ability to come out here on the weekends and fly home when I need to.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to work my way back into the hunting, and this camp is the perfect way to do it. It's a nice middle point where we can all meet up together.
Yeah.
And then we're blessed to be able to actually harvest a few deer this weekend. And
fantastic.
Then for Lewis to be able to see it, this new
really
hunter who started basically off of Pertnear, which is hilarious.
Yeah, you've been telling us that he's been following us and trying to learn how to hunt and this and that. And
and he's kind of teaching himself. Nobody in your family really hunts a lot, right? So
yeah, no one in the immediate family hunts, so it's been a learning experience. Reading some books, listening to some goofy guys talk on podcasts. But no, it's been sweet.
We're here for that.
Are you talking about that Meat Eater podcast?
Yeah. I think that's what
we're not
you're
goofy, are we?
And then this extremely helpful podcast. But seriously, no, it's been great.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
It's great having you up here, and it's kind of funny because back home, my wife's cousin, her and her husband asked me if I would take their son out. He's 11. He turns 12 in November. But they don't hunt, but he really wants to learn to hunt. So I've been taking him out. And, I took him out just a couple times. The first time I took him out, my son Joe shot his first buck with a bow the week before he went in the Navy. And then, so he got to see that. He loved it. He helped track the deer. And then the next time I go out is when Tim shot his big buck across the field from us. So, so Colton was loving it. And I just think it's so important for young people, or really anybody who wants to get into hunting. It's good that somebody's there to help you out and show you. And so it's been fun. It was great that you came and you got, because there's many weekends that we would see nothing or get nothing, but you got to see the best of it this weekend.
So you got to come again next year so we can kill 3 more deer.
Yeah, no doubt.
Must be you. That's
right.
Yeah, you learn a lot faster around people like this. I've been trying to sneak up on turkeys for about a month now. It doesn't work so well.
Yeah.
That's tough.
5 seconds talking with these guys. They're like, oh, it's not how it works.
Yeah. In the fall, it's a little different. You kind of got to run in and bust them up and try to call them back in. It's one of the best ways to do it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's. I think this is a great way to. I think this is a weekend, Tim, that you've wanted to have for the past, 4 or 5 years you own this camp. And we did get the bear. Adam got a bear, about 45 minutes north of here. Yeah. We've had some great bear hunts, but and Joel got that deer a few years ago. But this weekend is what you picture as deer camp. You got 3 deer outside hanging.
I know.
I mean, we're heading home here in a little bit. It's Sunday. Obviously, we got to get back. But, I mean, this exceeded all my expectations. I've had such a good time.
Yeah.
And, yeah, your camp is awesome. I mean, everything you've done here. And to be able to harvest 2 deer right behind this place is unbelievable.
I know. It's pretty cool. And it may fluctuate, and we probably will. In other years, we won't be able to do that. But as we figure the area out, spend more time up here, we'll have other good spots to go to. And we'll probably always have people sitting out back and the stands. It makes it convenient, for people who aren't familiar with the area or can't get out to walk too far.
It was funny last night when I was leaving here. We had that big lunch, and we were all laying around yesterday afternoon. And I'm like, can I just crack the back door and you guys can go sit in the stands and I'll hunt from the porch? Or
I know.
Can we all just hunt here?
Yeah.
So
well, it was funny because yesterday I spent 3 or 4 hours across the street on the other state land, and I had a great time. I still hunted. I didn't bother trying to put up a stand. I just still hunted through there and explored some new area, and I thought for sure I'd come across something. But the woods were beautiful, and I really enjoyed it. But while I'm out there covering all this territory, I'm seeing the text from these guys back here, and they're seeing deer left and right, and David shoots one, and.
Yeah, and I had a spot that I had all set up that I thought was just going to be perfect with the apple crop this year and them coming in and out of the property. And I'm like, oh, this is golden.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting over there, and you guys are texting about all the deer you're seeing, and David shoots at one, and I'm sitting there like, I haven't seen a freaking squirrel today.
Yeah.
Well, these are the memories. I'm just going back to, I shot that buck, and I know a lot of people are like, why would you shoot a small buck, whatever, but, those memories are special. To have a morning this crisp and cold and nice and friends and family, I don't regret it one bit. I'll give up my archery tag. I got lots of hunts ahead of me. I mean, it was fun. It was a good time, and to get one up here or even see a deer is tough.
Yeah,
we had that deer pattern pretty good on trail camera too.
We did.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
Tim's like he comes here every night.
Tim was like, we need to shoot this deer so it stops taking pictures of him.
800 pictures of this guy hanging
literally
around.
night and day.
I know.
He'd freaking walk down the trail, look towards the camp, turn around, eat the apples all night.
Then the neighbor pulled up earlier to check out the deer. And,
that was funny.
And he's like, "Oh, you shot that one." He goes,
he's like, "You shot that 4-point?" We're like, "Yeah, Forky. He's dead."
He's like, "Yeah, I had him on camera behind my camp at 3 a.m."
Yeah.
I had him on camera this morning.
Wow.
I'm like, well, he was out for his last loop.
Yep. His last go round.
So, appreciate you guys taking the time to hop on to do this. I just wanted to wrap this weekend up. We were posting stuff on social media, and I thought it'd be fun to.
Sure.
Especially now at this point, we had some stories to tell. So.
Yeah, it made it worthwhile.
Yeah, get that recap, and we'll get a lunch in us here, and then clean things up and call her a weekend.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thanks everybody for coming. It was fun.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
See you.
Feed 'em.
Feed 'em.